Hi, everybody. This is On coming to you with this month's video. And for those that don't know me, I am the author of this book right here, The Code Journey. And every year I put out a new edition. I'm actually very excited. In a few days, I'm going to start the 2025 edition. But we are just in 2024. So you can always get a copy of this if you'd like to. Jump over to my website at compassioncodes.com and you'll find links. Go to the goods tab, select the code journey, and you can find the links for both the ebook and the paperback version there. But I want to get into this month's topic. This is going to be kind of an interesting one, and I will thank those who stimulated this this topic for me. It actually ties into where our codes are going to be in February. And this topic has to do with judgments, hardships, and blessings in life. And this is kind of a big thing. And some of the people know me. I recently put out a post because I am sitting in some hardships right now, and life is not an easy cakewalk, as you might say right now. And when you're sitting in these positions, the last thing you need is for people to come in and judge you. The last thing that you need is for people to, um, kick you when you're down, so to say, in life. And I had put out a post asking for some help from people if they could help me out because I've been trying to maneuver winter in Maine, in and out of my vehicle. I've had some help with some things. I've had some aspects that have helped me out with getting lodging. As you can see, I have a little bit of shelter for 2 nights here. And I've been bouncing around, and people say, well, you should have budgeted better. You should have done this. You should have done that. And so all these judgments were coming up, but it wasn't from the people who knew me. It was from people who actually maybe hadn't seen a post of mine or commented on mine for a very long time. And they were people that, have not necessarily experienced a lot of hardships in their life, which is kind of interesting. So I thought this is a really good thing for me to address this month. This is a really good thing for me to pick up. There were a lot of things that led to my situation from, when I was on the road and people said, well, you shouldn't have been traveling around if you didn't have this kind of money and that. And, what they miss is that a lot of times when I'm touring, I'm not staying in fancy hotels and stuff like that every night. I mean, I'm in truck stops, I'm in campgrounds that are $10 to $20 a night. Um, a lot of different options that are not expensive options or cost nothing to stay there. It's not a glamorous life necessarily. And, yes, it's fun. Yes, I enjoy what I do. But I also ran into about $6,000 to $8,000 of expenses while I was traveling this last summer that were not planned for and not expected. And so, in the process of that, that removed everything I had set aside for winter. And we've been fortunate in some ways that the winter has not been as harsh as some winters can get here, definitely. But on the other hand, winter is winter here, and you're going to hit some cold temps. And so I put out a post requesting help from those that maybe could do it. I put out a lot of free things in my work. I do study sessions for free, and I put up a lot of posts with a lot of information, and I don't expect people to, I don't ask for anything, from it. And but I know it's changing lives and I know it helps people. And part of the reason I have this scaled aspect in my work is because I know what it feels like to be without anything. I know what it's like to go through these hard times and to have these challenges and to literally not have that $10 or $15 to donate for something that I need. I've been there, and I get it. And so I feel like that's an important thing for me to put out if somebody's, truly in help. Well, this has been such a beautiful process because as I put this out there and people know I don't ask unless I need something, and I'm not asking all the time. I don't ask very often, but when I do, I do. And so I put this out there. And anyways, I'd set up this post and explained what the situation was, how I got to this point. And a lot of people are like, wow, I'm amazed you're just continuing to go. You're not letting it stop you. And I think that's a big thing. When we face challenges in life, uh, when we experience these hardships in life, you can't let it just throw a roadblock up on you and stop you from doing everything and stop you from doing the work, because sometimes that's what the intent is. And some of the feedback I got was, this is a scam post. This isn't Jessie. She would never say anything. Well, right there, I knew they didn't really know me very well because they were calling me Jessie and not on. So, they're probably about, oh, what, this is, they're about what, 5.5 years behind the times of things. So, that tells me something right there. Um, and I mean, it's that type of thing. And then somebody else commented saying, yeah, I think that too. And then started bashing me and started making all kinds of judgments on me about how I should have done this and I should have had 6 months of money set aside. Well, I'll tell you, there's not a lot of people in this world that can set 6 months aside. And then said, well, you're not truly a spiritual leader. You're not truly somebody who should be guiding other people if you're in that situation. And that one kind of stung. I'm going to be honest about that. That really kind of stung a bit. And that kind of hit me right here. And I thought, wow, this is part of what the codes talk about in 2024, is this aspect of this, where the new age movement and the spiritual movement is going to come under fire. And we're going to see these people who are following a lot of false people, or a lot of people who are doing things just for the money. And I found that very ironic, because it reminded me how much we've been programmed that only the most successful and rich people, or the most rich people, are the successful ones and are the ones of value. And the ironic twist in that is, a lot of the people that are making big bucks as a spiritual leader, a lot of people who are in these six-figure incomes and things like that. And that's not, some people are there that I know, and they're legitimate people, don't get me wrong, because there are some good people that are doing very well, and many of them have multiple things going. It's not just one thing. But a lot of your big, popular, well-known so-called spiritual leaders have not been through genuine hardships. And they're just putting out information. They're not walking their talk. They're expecting you to do certain things, and they're not actually implementing that in their life. And I turn that around and say, you know what? I would never want to learn from somebody who hasn't been through hardships, who doesn't know what it's like to face life-threatening situations, who doesn't know what it's like to be there. And I don't wish that upon anybody. But if they don't know what it's like to be in these struggles, if they haven't been homeless, if they haven't been through hard challenges in life and come through them, then their words kind of are just words. you know it's like a preacher who goes up and talks in a church, and they talk about the sermon and they maybe recite some Bible verses, but then they go out and they're hanging out at the titty bar, and they're hanging out at you know um, racing places and gambling, and they're down getting drunk all the time, and attending orgies and things like that. And, people have a right to do what they want, but when you're in that position of being a leader, or being a minister, or being a preacher, or claiming that you're, on the spiritual path, you're kind of held to a different realm in some ways. And that doesn't mean that you don't make mistakes, or that you're perfect, or anything like that. But it does mean that, you know, you should be walking your talk. You should be practicing what you preach, as they say in there. And so I feel like that because, part of these challenges, part of one of the things that has drawn people to my work is the fact that I've been through a lot of challenges in life. Because when people have seen me go through it, it's given them hope and it's given them inspiration. And they've said, man, if she can get through these situations, if she can get through being in her vehicle in Maine in winter, if she can maneuver these situations of being homeless, if she can maneuver these pieces, then I can certainly get through the challenges I'm facing. And so, to have this person come through and make these comments and to say, well, if you were a spiritual leader, you wouldn't do this. If you were really working from elevated energy, you wouldn't be in this situation. And that's just such a reminder that if you're not standing in somebody's shoes, I mean, this is this programming that is there. This is this programming that runs through some of the spiritual community, and it's a lie. It's an absolute lie in there. And the best spiritual teachers I know have been not pushed into the spotlight. They weren't the big money makers, but their information and their insight was incredibly valuable. So it kind of begs this question is, if you're such a good person, if you are walking a divinely aligned path, if you're aligned with God, if you're supporting divine source in the world, how can you possibly have hardships? It lends to this question of spiritual leaders don't experience things like homelessness, and again, not true. It's just not true. Matter of fact, a lot of your true ones are. Now, a lot of the people that are pushed into the limelight, they have various connections. They have various things. And they haven't, they've had the budgets, they've had the financial backings, they've had a lot of things behind them, and they've been involved in a lot of ugly things. We've seen that with John of God, we've seen that with a few different spiritual leaders, and we're going to see a lot more of it coming up in 2024, where these people are going to come under scrutiny. These people who have been in the limelight, who are making the big figures, they're going to come under scrutiny, and we're going to find out that they're tied to a lot of things that are not very spiritual, and they're not very divine, and they're not very aligned with the light. And so be ready for that and be prepared for that. Also, again, this concept of we want to be very careful, and we do not want to get into judging other people when we haven't stood in their shoes, when we haven't lived the circumstances that they're living. It's like if you've never been pregnant, you have no idea what it's like to be pregnant. I mean, you can understand that there's morning sickness, or you can understand that the body swells and bloats or things like that, but you don't really know what it feels like to push a baby out of you. Okay. I haven't had children, so I can maybe understand some of the emotional swings. I can maybe understand certain pieces or components, but I don't understand that actual experience in life, nor would I claim to, nor would I judge somebody and say, oh, you have no reason to scream in pain when that comes out of you. Or, you have no reason to be such an emotional person. That would be me judging somebody over something I don't have any knowledge or information or base or understanding of. And this is what happens a lot of times when these things come up and people, carry these illusions of things. I mean, I think I've broken so many illusions writing books and seeing, who actually makes the bestseller list and who doesn't. It has nothing to do with how good your book is. It has to do with a lot of money things. It has to do with a lot of connection things. It has to do with a lot of other things. But it's not based on how good your book is. Most of all of this stuff is bought and paid for. These interviews on news shows, morning news shows, they don't just give you interviews out of the grace of their, you know, graciousness that they want to support your work. 99% of those are paid for. So it's all marketing stuff in there. So that being said, let's take a look at some of these components. Why do good people go through hardships? And this is a good question, and there's some various layers to it. And I have to refer a little bit to my notes here, and I'm sorry about the glare on my glasses, but it is definitely that. For one thing that happens in answering these questions is that somebody may be embracing what needs to be done, versus just what's pleasant to do, and to see how that can bring blessings forward, to see how that can bring forward blessings for themselves, for other people, for shifting things. So I may be doing some energetic work, but in the process of that energetic work, obviously anything that's working, I may be doing something to increase divine presence in the world. But if there's energy around that is working against divine presence, it's not going to be happy with me doing that. And I'm going to come under attack for that. Um, there's going to be people that are going to backlash against that. I mean, let's go to Christ's days. Okay, if you look at Christ and what he put up with, right? And the people who were the leaders and the rulers in his area, they didn't like that people were listening to him. They didn't like that people were taking in his messages and considering, that they could be strong on their own, or, that they could make it. And so they they started attacking him. They started coming after him, with things, and they started getting very aggressive with him and these pieces, because they didn't want that energy. They wanted to keep control of the people. And if this man kept walking around telling people that they could do their own thing, and telling people that they could love one another and they didn't have to obey all these orders that were being issued, well, that didn't work too well for them. So energetically, we run into the same thing. So if we are, doing a lot of work for God or for divine presence, then that backlash is something that can certainly happen. And that is one of the reasons we'll get hardships, because that polarity energy is trying to get us to back down. It's trying to get us to stop bringing divine presence up, or God's energy up in the world, and expanding it. It's not going to be happy, so it's going to lash out at whoever is doing that work. That's one core piece in there. Also, we get these hardships, these things come in on us that test us. It oftentimes can be a test. Are you truly devoted to this work? How long will you stay committed to it? What are you willing to endure to keep going with this? And again, some of this can be energetic backlash. It can be, various things that come out to try to stop us, to try to block us, to see, hey, if things get a little rough on your path, are you still going to be devoted to divine service? Are you still going to be devoted to bringing this work out? Are you still going to be devoted to God? When these challenges come through, how about when life gets uncomfortable? How about when you can't put a roof over your head? How about when you don't have enough food to eat? Are you still going to do it then? And so these challenges sometimes are a test on us. Now, I want to make it clear, God doesn't put these tests forward to us. That is the polarity energy. That is the energy that's trying to block divine presence, that's trying to pull us away from divine source energy in there. So God will pull us out of these things, but God doesn't give us these tests. And we have to make that choice, and we have to learn that discernment to know, when are we being tempted with something? Look, if you just stop doing this work, you can have the money. You can go work this job over here and have this money for A, B, C, and D, and make your life a whole lot comfortable. But that's not always the point, is it? Because when you are truly, truly dedicated to do this type of work, and I don't believe that we have to always suffer, and not everybody does. And I don't believe that we have to remain in suffering. But I do think that sometimes we go through these hardships, and they are tests, and they are challenges to see just how committed are you. And I believe that God takes those hardships and uses us to inspire other people, just as Christ was being used in his time to show people, look, you can come through this. You can endure through these tests. You can surpass these challenges. And here's how you do it. I mean, he was that living example of things. And that's one of the things I try to do too, is I could sit there and I could say, okay, well, I give up. It's life's a little hard. I'm not going to do this anymore. Or I can say, no, obviously my work is having an impact in the world and it is affecting lives and it is changing people and it is making a difference. And if it wasn't, I wouldn't be getting these hardships. I wouldn't be getting these attacks. And that's where you can come back and say, some of these big spiritual leaders, why are they not under attack? Well, maybe their work isn't changing lives as much as it's promoted to be changing lives. And there, maybe it's not as great as it's promoted to be. Um, and that's a component in things. It definitely is a consideration. So I believe that God sits there and goes, look, okay, you may have to go through some of these hardships, but I'm going to be there with you. I'm going to be standing at your side. Tap into me, tap into this divine source, and honor this path. And we're going to show people what they can do. We're going to show people that they can break through things, and you're going to be an inspiration. And I believe that. I believe a lot of things in my life have been just that, is to serve to be this inspiration to remind people you can come out of really pretty much anything, unless you're leaving this life, then that's another story. But you can come out of any hardship there, and you don't have to be in the suffering. You can do it with grace, you can do it with compassion, you can do it with love in your heart. And that is the very thing. When I put that call out for help, a lot of people came forward because I've stood there in the unconditional love. I've supported them. I've given to them. I've worked with them. I've helped them out when they were in hard times over and over again. And people remember that. And they know that when I say something, I'm saying it from a place of experience. I'm not just saying it from blind words coming off of whatever, that I'm saying it because I understand what it's like. And so that is a huge part in there. Also, um, this is about deciding how dedicated are you to the responsibilities and obligations. I mean, always we have to look at the pieces and say, hey, am I out of divine alignment someplace? Is there something that's not there? But on the other hand, if this work is that important, if I am truly believing in my work, that I'm not going to let these challenges stop me. You've got to have that dedication. You don't just give up because you get in an uncomfortable spot or things don't work out at a certain time, or you run into these challenges. Um, if you're truly committed to the work, you're committed to the work. And that includes the times that maybe you're not profiting a lot from it. And a lot of times, the people who are truly committed, they're not profiting a lot from things. Um, and that's just a hardcore truth. That's just the way it is. And that's why a lot of people, they get into this industry and it's like, oh, I'm not making money. Oh, I'm not doing this, or oh, I'm not benefiting that way. And they leave it. They're not truly committed to the path. They're not truly devoted to walk what has to be walked and to meet what has to be done in there. So this is where it separates people out. It separates the people out who think it's a nice concept versus the people who are actually doing the work in there. Because anybody can come in and say anything. But if they're not actually doing the work, then it doesn't mean a lot. You're not going to get results. You're not going to get the results that you're looking for. You're not going to get to the blessings. And a lot of times we have to go through these hardships. It's like crossing the abyss periods and things like that. You go through the hardships to get to the blessings. And you're not going to get those bigger blessings if you're not willing to go to the hardships. You're not going to find real joy in life if you don't give up the illusionary joy in life. You're not going to get to the real successes if you don't give up the superficial successes along the way. So it's just all part of the work. And then, of course, we have one more piece that plays into it from my perspective, which is the code patterns. You know, some people are born on these code patterns and their code patterns are full of success and full of great things. And then you have other people that are born into hardships. You know, I'm born into a code pattern that is incredibly challenging. I stepped into this body uh, 5.5 years ago, knowing the hardships that came with it. I didn't come into this blind. And some of us think, man, how come I got the sucky cards? Well, I'll tell you, a lot of times you have to be kind of a strong soul to get some of those pieces because you are the one that is standing up against the materialism. You are the one that's standing up and showing the Christ consciousness. You are the one that is standing up and facing the lies. You're the one that is here to shine the truth and to be that spark where lies and deception and things can't hide. You're the one that carries these different things. So some people, they don't have to face these challenges in their life, but we all have code patterns where there are certain points in our cycles where we go through challenges. So this year, I am just, in the process this year, I'm on the third year of a 3 year um, cycle and things. And all I can say is look out when I come out of this cycle because because I'm going to be packing some power. And and I know that. So when I see these challenges come up, when I realize that yeah, housing was going to be a problem. I applied for things. I took all of the steps. It's not like I sat back and did nothing. I took all the steps to get into what I could get into, what was within my budget, and all of that. I've applied. I'm on waiting list. It's just there's nothing available right now, and that's not something I have control over. I don't have control over the availability of housing where I am. So when I pull these pieces together, it's like, I know this energy is going to come at me because I'm bringing so much light into the area where I am. And, when it's here, I just have to face it for these next few months and get through this time period. And then I know that things will come around. What are the gifts in this? Well, the gifts are, and the reason I know I'm walking a divine path is because I've been supported. So every time I face these hardships, then I've been supported, whether it has been people stepping up for me, whether it's been people working with me to say, look, you can stay here for this period of time for this amount. I can't let you stay here, the whole time because it's our in season, it's our busy season, we have to make our earning too. Um, but seeing people step forward, seeing the options come forward for me, seeing the opportunities, being protected when I do need to be in my vehicle. The nights that I'm there, maybe those are the nights that it warms up a little bit and some of the storms get diverted. That's God in motion. That's divine source standing right there with me in it, saying it's okay. It's okay. And if I wasn't walking my talk, people wouldn't want to come forward and help me either. That's another thing. And that has just been such a beautiful gift because when I look at these things and I stop and I go, wow, look at all these lives that I touched enough that they want to step forward and help. That this work is touching enough that it's touched somebody's life and maybe their friend wanted to help because they've seen what it's done. Um, and that's where the real gift is. That's where the real blessing is. And it's showing a lot of people, look, you may go through these challenges. You may have to face hard things, but divine source is right there with you if you are standing in alignment with divine source, and you will be taken care of and you will be provided for, and things will come through for you, even if it's hard to get through it. And I'll tell you, it's been a challenge this year, more so than at other points in my life, because my body is not doing as well as it used to be. You know, I feel it, I notice it, a little too much time at the gym and my body's shaking the next day or things like that. I notice I can't tolerate certain things as I used to be able to and there. And so it is a little bit harder than it used to be. But I know when I come out the other side of this, the blessings are going to be magnificent because I keep doubling up. I keep doubling up on my connection. And that's the real key is again, it's not about how wealthy you are and avoiding this. And again, when you're looking for somebody to work with, I encourage you to find somebody who has been through challenges, who knows what it's like to face the really tough things in life. And, when I say the tough things, I don't mean, oh my goodness, Starbucks doesn't have the flavor of coffee you want. I mean, being without a home. I mean, wondering, where you can put your head down at night. I mean, wondering, can I afford to go over to the store and buy, a couple of small items of groceries, these sorts of things. And really being in those positions face to face with that and having to just trust, to just have that faith that you're going to come through it. So I hope this gives you an idea, just to mention a little bit too about some of these code patterns on this topic. Let's consider what judgments are about. When we judge somebody and we look at that piece, the person who judges is really not thinking clearly. They are reliant on people to put them through, and a lot of times they are not doing the work. They are not doing the work themselves. Because if they were, I mean, they would not have that judgment, honestly. When we look at what a judgment is, it is to break up divine partnership, and judgments in plural is really about transitioning through. It's something that we receive when we are leaving and setting aside materialism, when we are not willing to follow the pack, when we are not willing to walk in the so-called popular circles or groups of people. That is when judgments oftentimes come up. And the people who don't have the strength to take the spiritual path, the people who don't have the strength to align with their soul self, are going to be the ones making the judgments in there. They are existing in a material world existence, and they are dealing with certain literal illnesses that are going on that affect the mind and that affects various other things. Sometimes outside of the code perspective of it, people will make judgments because there's something in that experience that somebody's going through. Like there might be something in my experience of being homeless that triggers a fear in somebody that they don't want to acknowledge, that they don't want to think about, that could ever be a possibility in there. So judgment is a very interesting thing. And it, to judge is to not understand how things work. It literally encodes means to not understand how something works and to have no interest in understanding how something works. Now, hardships, when we look at that in codes, that literally is a power battle. So it is a power battle between self-sufficiency and that which wants to control people. So keep that in mind when you are going through hardships. There is an energetic battle. Now, that being said, people will come up and say, well, if you're on the spiritual path, you are not in battle. Well, let me tell you, no, you don't go out looking to battle people. You don't go out on the attack necessarily of people. But what you do is, these hardships are created by that which is losing control and power over you. And that's where the hardships are originated, that energetic vibration pattern that doesn't like that you are self-sufficient. in there. And, you know, you can be engaged in battles. You can be in a battle even if you are, even if you were not choosing to be in it, because you're going to have sometimes that polarity energy that is going to want to battle with you. Now, that doesn't mean you actually engage in battle or battle back with it. I mean, but you are still in a battle there. And we see that play out in a lot of things in our world right now. And then blessings. What are blessings from, and how do blessings come about? Blessings come about when we understand our true worth and our true value. And again, if we understand that, you know, not from a egotistical God complex sort of way, but when we really understand our true value and our true worth, then we're going to unfold the blessings. So if we tap into that versus being in the competition, having to prove ourselves, having to carry a certain image or a certain status. You know, when we chase the image and we chase the status and we chase the competition, okay, we're not standing in our true worth and value, and we will never know the true blessings. But when we do stand in it, then we can receive the blessings. And that's one of the things that people have commented in. How do you stay so calm? How do you stay peaceful? How do you do it? And I say, you know, some days it tries me. It really challenges my mind. It challenges my emotions. But I know that that's not the path I want to take. I don't want to be in that victim space, and I refuse to live in it, because that's not going to help me. That's not connected to divinity. That's not connected to divine source, and I'm not going to receive any help from that space. So, you know, my choice is to be in this connection and to know my value and to know my worth, and to realize that, okay, some of this wouldn't happen if I didn't know that value and worth. But in knowing that, I'm going to unfold the blessings to get me through things. So I hope this has been helpful for you. I think I went on a little longer than I intended to today because I'm kind of catching my breath and relaxing a little bit. But I wanted to explain some of this because I think it's very important that we do not judge people when we see them in hardships. Certainly, yes, there are those people out there who have put themselves in hardships. They've created things. They have not operated in wise ways, and that's why they are in the hardships. They refuse to do the work, and that's why they're in hardships. They refuse to move forward, so they never get their situation changed. They don't adjust things. They don't do some of the steps they need to be doing to change their situation. But we also need to have some compassion, and we also need to look at things case by case and say, is this a person who's always sitting in victim energy, or do they only ask for help once every 4 or 5 years? Okay. Are they constantly asking for help and begging for donations, or are they saying, look, I'm in a bad situation. Do you want to step up? And that's, you know, these are some of the differences. Um, Life happens and hardships can happen. And we don't want to be in that judgment space, you know, against somebody else. I always figure there's reasons, there's more layers, there's things going on. There can be all kinds of components there. And the reality of it is it doesn't benefit us or anybody else to sit there and criticize them and attack them for being in the space that they're in, whether they put themselves there or not. You know, woe be to the people who do that, because they are drawing some stuff on themselves that I don't want to deal with. I take my hardships over what they're drawing on themselves any day, honestly, in there. And we want to understand that hardships require compassion. Yes, we want to have discernment of when somebody is saying, hey, I'm in hardships just because they don't feel like working and they want a free ride with everything. But most of the time, that's not most people. Most people, when they hit hardships, there's something bigger going on. Or again, that may be part of their life patterns that are going on. So just have a little compassion. It never hurts. It never hurts to work with some unconditional love. It never hurts to work with some compassion and to come from the heart-centered space. and it can make a big difference for people. When somebody is struggling, small things make a big difference in there. I just wrote an article on that not too long ago, just in the last week or so. I had an article come out about that in our local paper, how, small things make a big difference. So again, check out my website, compassioncodes.com. I hope this has been useful for you, and I look forward to connecting with you next month and having things underway for 2025's book. Take care, everybody.